Okay, imagine this. You're in the grocery store, right? Bright lights, maybe the wheels on your cart are a bit wonky.
Uh-huh. Usual scene.
And you get to the salt aisle, well, it's a lot. So many kinds.
It really is overwhelming sometimes.
And then you see it, that Himalayan pink salt. It's got that nice rosy glow, looks kind of fancy next to just, plain old table salt.
It definitely catches the eye. There's this sort of allure to it, isn't there?
Oh,
A
yeah.
story.
Exactly. Like a culinary showdown waiting to happen. So that's what we're diving into today.
The Great Salt Showdown.
Ah, yeah, something like that. We want to figure out, what's the real deal here? Is pink salt actually better, or is it mostly just, well, clever marketing?
It's a great question. Because salt is so fundamental, we've looked at a bunch of info comparing them, haven't we?
We have, sifting through the grains of truth, you could say.
Nice one. Okay, let's start at the source. Where does this stuff actually come from?
Right, so table salt, the standard white stuff, it usually comes from underground deposits, right? Like old dried up seas.
Or evaporated seawater?
And then it gets refined. Pretty heavily processed sometimes.
Often, yeah. They purify it, might bleach it to get it super white, add things so it doesn't clump up.
Anti-caking agents.
Exactly. And importantly, in many places, they add iodine.
Which is a big deal for health, we should mention.
Absolutely. It's like the reliable family car of the pantry. Does the job consistently.
Okay, now pink salt. The story there is, well, a bit more romantic, isn't it?
It definitely has more mystique. Comes from one specific place, the Kura salt mine in Pakistan.
Right near the Himalayas, also from ancient seabeds, like millions of years ago.
Mm-hmm. And that signature pink color, that comes from tiny amounts of minerals mixed in, mostly iron oxide, giving it that sort of blush.
And it's less processed, often mined by hand, people say.
That's the narrative, yeah.
Yeah.
Hand extracted, minimal processing. It's positioned as more natural, like the organic free-range chicken versus the standard broiler.
Good analogy. But that processing difference and the minerals, that's where the big claims come in, right?
Precisely. The marketing often talks about, dozens of trace minerals, up to 84 sometimes.
I've heard that number. Potassium, magnesium, calcium. Sounds like a multivitamin in crystal form.
It really does sound impressive. But we need to look at the actual composition.
Okay, so what's the breakdown?
Well, the reality is about 98% of Himalayan pink salt is just plain old sodium chloride.
98%.
Yep, the exact same chemical compound that makes up table salt.
So all those other minerals, they're crammed into the remaining 2%.
That's right. Just a tiny fraction left for everything else.
Okay, so is that 2% enough to actually, do anything for your health?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the answer, based on the evidence, is probably not.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, the amounts are just too small. You'd need to eat a huge amount of pink salt, way more than is healthy, to get any meaningful dose of those minerals.
Okay, so it's like a single drop of rain in a thunderstorm.
That's a perfect way to put it. You're chasing these trace minerals, but overloading on sodium in the process.
Which is definitely not good. We know too much sodium is linked to high blood pressure and stuff. The American Heart Association says, what, about 2,300 milligrams a day?
Right, which is only about a teaspoon of salt.
Yeah.
And most people get way more than that already, often hidden in processed foods.
So chasing minerals in pink salt seems counterproductive.
It really does. And this brings us back to table salt for a second. That iodine fortification we mentioned,
Yeah.
that's a proven public health benefit. It prevents iodine deficiency, which can cause serious thyroid problems and other issues.
And pink salt doesn't have that benefit. Naturally, I mean.
It contains some iodine naturally, but usually not nearly enough to meet daily needs or prevent deficiency. So if you only use pink salt and don't get iodine elsewhere.
You could be missing out on something important.
Exactly. So purely from that added nutrient perspective, iodized table salt actually has a clear advantage.
Interesting. Okay, let's switch gears slightly. What about taste? People swear pink salt tastes different, maybe milder or more complex.
The taste debate.
Yeah.
There might be a subtle perceived difference, yeah.
How so?
It often comes down to the crystal size and shape. Pink salt is often coarser, less uniform than fine table salt.
Right, you can get big chunks.
And those larger crystals dissolve differently on your tongue. It might hit your taste buds slightly differently, maybe feel less intensely salty up front.
Okay, so it's more about texture and dissolution rate.
Largely, yes. Also, because the crystals are often bigger and less dense, a teaspoon of coarse pink salt might actually contain slightly less sodium chloride by weight than a teaspoon of fine table salt.
So you might inadvertently use a tiny bit less sodium for the same volume.
Potentially, yeah. Which could be a small plus if you're watching sodium, but it's not a huge difference.
And visually, pink salt definitely wins, you have to admit. The coarse grinders, those big slabs for cooking.
Oh, absolutely. The aesthetic appeal is undeniable. It looks great on food, great in photos. Food bloggers love it.
Whereas table salt is just white. Functional, but not very glamorous.
But that uniformity is key for things like baking, where precise measurements are crucial. Table salt is predictable.
Good point. So ultimately, they both just make food taste salty.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Any major flavor differences in a dish are far more likely coming from the chef's skill or other ingredients, not the tiny mineral variations in the salt itself.
Right. Okay, let's tackle some of the wilder health claims. You sometimes hear pink salt can, like, cure acne or help you sleep, balance your body's pH.
Oh boy. Yeah, those claims get pretty out there. And, well, let's be blunt. There's no real scientific basis for them.
None.
None. Your body has incredibly effective systems, mainly your kidneys and lungs, to keep your pH tightly regulated. Dietary salt isn't going to change that.
And the detox thing.
That's another myth. Your liver and kidneys are your detox powerhouses. Pink salt doesn't have special detox powers. These ideas are mostly marketing fluff, not science.
So no robust studies backing up these big claims.
Nope. It's mostly anecdotal stories or, wellness blogs, not solid peer-reviewed research showing these kinds of benefits from the salt itself.
Okay. What about the anti-caking agents in table salt? Pink salt doesn't have those. Is that a benefit for people wanting cleaner food?
That's a fair point for some people.
Mm-hmm.
If you're really trying to avoid all additives, then yes, pink salt is naturally free of things like sodium aluminosilicate.
But are those additives actually harmful in table salt?
They're used in tiny amounts and are approved as safe by food safety agencies. For the average person, they're really not a concern, but for someone very focused on minimal processing, pink salt fits that bill better.
Got it. So, bottom line on health. Pink or white, too much sodium is the real issue.
Exactly. High blood pressure, water retention. Those risks apply equally if you overdo it on any salt. The color doesn't magically negate the effects of sodium chloride.
Moderation is key, no matter what's in the shaker.
That's the most important health message here, definitely. Focus on overall sodium reduction, especially from processed foods. That matters way more than pink versus white.
It's funny how pink salt has moved beyond just food, though. You see those salt lamps everywhere.
Oh, the lamps, yes.
Yeah. And bath salts, even salt shot glasses, it's a whole lifestyle thing now.
It really is. And again, the science behind the benefits of those things is shaky at best.
So the lamps don't really purify the air?
The claims about negative ions and major air purification aren't well supported. They look nice, create a warm glow, might attract a tiny bit of humidity and dust, but that's about it.
And the bath salts? Relaxing, sure, but is it the pink salt doing anything special?
Probably more the warm water and just taking time to relax. Any salt can make bath water feel a bit different, but unique therapeutic claims for pink salt specifically. Not much evidence.
So mostly aesthetics and novelty.
Pretty much. It taps into that whole wellness and natural living trend. And that definitely comes with a higher price tag.
Yeah, pink salt is usually way more expensive than table salt.
You're paying for the story, the origin, the hand mining aspect, the shipping from Pakistan, and that perceived exclusivity and health halo. It's like craft beer versus a standard lager.
While table salt is the budget-friendly workhorse, does the job, adds iodine.
And is readily available everywhere. For basic seasoning, it's perfectly functional and arguably more practical from a public health perspective because of the iodine.
Okay, one more angle. What about environmental or ethical stuff? Mining the stuff in Pakistan, shipping it globally.
That's a really important consideration, actually. Mining is an extractive industry, and Kara is a finite resource. There's a carbon footprint associated with shipping it all over the world.
Compared to table salt, which might be sourced more locally from seawater, maybe?
It depends on where you are, but yes, local sea salt production could potentially have a lower transport footprint. And then there are questions about labor conditions in the mines. It's often hand-mined, and ensuring fair labor practices is something conscious consumers might want to look into.
So check the brand if that's a concern.
Definitely worth looking for brands that are transparent about their sourcing and labor standards.
Okay, so after all this digging, where do we land? If someone asks, which salt should I buy?
Well, like we said, it really depends on what you value most. If you want something minimally processed,
Yeah.
visually appealing, maybe with that slightly different textural experience, and you don't mind the higher price, pink salt is fine.
But don't expect health miracles.
Exactly. And remember the iodine factor you might need to get that elsewhere.
And table salt.
It's the practical, affordable choice, reliable, consistent, and often fortified with that essential iodine. Does the job perfectly well for seasoning food.
So the biggest factor for your health isn't the color, it's how much you use.
Absolutely. Moderation, moderation, moderation. That trumps everything else in the salt debate.
It kind of feels like arguing over whether Fuji or Gullah apples are better. Interesting, maybe, but not fundamentally changing your nutritional life.
That's a great way to look at it. It's a preference, mostly.
Yeah.
Choose what you like, what fits your budget, what aligns with your priorities. Just don't fall for the hype that one is dramatically healthier than the other in normal use.
A pinch of perspective, perhaps? Maybe the money saved by sticking with regular salt could go towards, I don't know, a really good bottle of olive oil or something else to make your meal delicious.
That was a thought. Investing in other quality ingredients. I like that.